It has been an interesting night. Oh my God. I apologize to anyone who is not here already. I can tell no one's here. We went back to the old way because the old way made it so at least people can hear me. So I apologize. Welcome back to the show. Please say hi if you're here. It's been an exciting night. I remember this is my 109th show. I remember this happened on my second and third show. It's been a while. I might need counseling after tonight, but I'm going to keep going. Thanks for people who are bearing with me. It's like, I can't show my face. No more new technology. Carrie, yay, you're back. Thank you. I am so sorry. This has happened maybe twice in 109 shows, but it's not pretty. So welcome back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play you this video so that you can hear the history. It's not very long. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of volunteers for, thank you. Okay. And what we're talking about tonight, if you're just finding this, is my horrible technical disability, my disability with technology. That's what we're talking about. But actually, we are talking about Black women who are the backbone of democracy. And I'd like you to hear these two videos. So I found it. The first one is a quick history. So hopefully you can hear this. Let me know. Shit happens. Thanks, Carrie. I know. This is crazy. You're so sweet. Oh, my God. All right. And I will try to make this loud.
For most of American history, white women have not been good allies to Black Americans. And it's way past time we confront this head on. So let's start with a brief history. One of the most damning things white women have done to Black people is to not support their right to vote. Historically, white women were offended that Black men were afforded the right to vote before us. Did you know that Fredrick Douglass spoke powerfully in favor of women's suffrage in 1848 at a conference for women's rights? Historians believe that the measure might never have made it to the convention if not for his support. Yet 20 years later, suffragists like Elizabeth Stanton opposed the 15th Amendment, which extended voting rights to Black men because the measure didn't include women. Stanton's actually quoted as saying, "It became a serious question whether we had to stand aside and let Sambo walk into the kingdom first. That's just freaking obnoxious." A lot of false equivalence and cultural appropriation took place in those days. Stanton and fellow suffragist Susan B. Anthony tried to equate white womanhood and not having the vote with being enslaved. Sound familiar? With Anthony saying that the men think of us as some of the slaveholders used to think of their slaves, all love and compassion with no malice in their heart. Douglass responded to Anthony by saying, when women, because they're women, are hunted down, when they are dragged from their houses and are hung from lampposts and their brains bashed out upon the pavement, then they will have an urgency to obtain the ballot equal to our own. From Emmett Till the Central Park Five to scores of lynchings of Black men based on lies, white women have been the instigators or at minimum indifferent to the plight of men and women who are Black. Now, remember the Women's March with the pink pussy hats? Well, many felt this movement was absent of inclusivity. They felt left out. Once again, they felt that the white women were protesting subjugation of them, not all women. Here are some changes that white women need to make in order to be real supporters of anti-racism. Become a close friend with someone who doesn't look like you. Stop going to Black Lives Matter protests and inviting all the white women back to lunch at your house, but no Black, brown, or Indigenous people. Listen when Black women speak. You don't have to agree with them, but you need to listen and listen well. White women need to use our privilege to spotlight and promote the voices of Black people. Stop saying that women were finally granted the right to vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment, because this is pretty much a lie. Voting could not be denied by the U.S. or any state on the count of sex. But what really happened during this time was that white women got their right to vote, but pretty much nobody else. The original white suffragists did not want or support Black women's voting rights. The racist laws and practices that kept them from the ballot box would take decades to undo, and in some cases are still happening today. Another thing some white women do is they enjoy the company of a Black man sexually, but they don't support Black people. They want to have Black babies, but they don't really care to know enough how to protect them or care for them, so they'll grow up feeling like they matter. White women enjoy music, styles, and culture and sports of Black people, but then oftentimes don't support the actual human rights of these Black people. White women, do not become a Karen. Don't get sanctimonious because a Black person dares to exert their right to exist and participate in life in your presence. Don't place your fragility before the physical and mental well-being of a Black person by calling the police on them, saying you're scared for your life when it's ludicrous and ridiculous. White women, we are not the star of the show. We do not lead. We have Black people in charge, and we support and follow. White women, don't put your picture on social media telling about what a great justice warrior you are. White women are not the focal point, and we don't get to decide who is being supportive and who isn't. White women, don't blindly support our racist husbands whose ideologies we just put up with and then pass on to the next generation. It's time to take a stand for our Black sisters and brothers. Let's use our privilege to educate ourselves about our real racial history so we can get out there and educate other white people. Support anti-racism in every area of your life and do it clearly, even when there's no Black people present. Resisting racism is a dedication to a lifestyle, not a hobby. It takes work and humility to do introspection about our deepest, often unconscious beliefs about our fellow humans. Do it anyway. This generation of white women must dedicate ourselves to fully supporting the dismantling of systemic racism. It's time white women take racial responsibility, vowing, this ends with me.
That's the end. Ta-da. All right. That was a video I did, and because of my technological incompetence. See, there we go. Because of my technological that keeps rearing its ugly head. I cannot show that video. It's up on my YouTube channel with a gazillion other ones. But that one was specific for tonight because one of my topics that I have prepared for everybody is that Black women, the backbone of democracy, they've saved us time and time again in the midterms. Gosh, I mean, we almost got another viciously racist. I cannot remember the state, and I was looking it up before, but we almost got another viciously racist person, but Black women came through for us and voted in droves. And that is an amazing thing. And I think it needs to be acknowledged. There's also somebody else who thinks it needs to be acknowledged. And this is from a video from The Root. And I was supposed to show it, but obviously I'll just be able to play it. It's quite short. This professor has a few words to say. And I really, really liked what she had to say. It was really, thanks, Carrie. Let me just grab her up. And this was extremely nice. I'm definitely going to follow this woman. I got it from The Root, but it wasn't really all over, social media. So I want to get that for you. And she's a professor, and she had a lot to say. And she said it way better than I could have. So I was thrilled. And so I will get that video right here. And I do a couple of videos on women specifically. And, it's a really, really tough thing, but it's very, very important. So let me just find this one. This one right here. Check it out. It starts with
so much for equality,
Kamala Harris.
Liberty, and justice for all, including the Black women who are too often overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy.
The relationship between Black women and the Democratic Party is an interesting one. Black women aren't just voting to save the party for the party's sake. This directly has to do with the fact that this impacts Black women's lives. Black women, when they get together, they get things done. My name is Sally Yema. I am a professor of urban politics at Northwestern University. In my work, I talk about how when Black people are engaged in the democratic process repeatedly and they still don't receive a democratic response from government, this could lead to what I call collective participatory debt, or CPD, which is basically extreme fatigue and disillusionment with the democratic process, following repeated participation in it without a fair response. Black women currently are showing up. They showed up for the past 20 years. And in terms of their voting for Democratic Party, we're talking around 98% in some elections,
98.
90% in others, but almost always Democrats consistently. So there's a lot of ways to think about why Black women have consistently voted for the Democratic Party. One is that they actually don't have a lot of other choices. We are in a two-party system, and we have a Republican Party that, for example, will put the Voting Rights Act on the table. And we know that Black women, unlike white women, weren't able to vote until the Voting Rights Act was passed. And so when you have a two-party system where your literal right to vote is on the table of one of those parties, you are essentially what we call political science captured. And so that plays a role. I do want to make clear, though, that Black women aren't just voting to save the party for the party's sake, but that this directly has to do with the fact that this impacts Black women's lives and their material conditions. We also have to think about Black men and the fact that mass incarceration impacted Black men disproportionately, as it did Black women, but in ways where it meant that given that Black men were in prison at a really high rate, the representation of Black women on the Democratic Party in terms of in the electorate is really important for representing Black people. And so Black women end up having to play this important role of being the mules of the Democratic Party, so being the only group that votes consistently for the Democratic Party. The mules of Black people, being the people who actually represent Black people, and then also being a group that is representing people of color more generally due to the fact that they are voting at this really high rate. Because they're coming out in a collective way, they end up voting in a way that helps everyone, right? And Black women know that they have this unique position, and so they continue to play it. But I think we also see the limits of having to be the saviors of democracy, especially when we don't get a democratic response. If the Democratic Party or the federal government more generally wants to thank Black women, first they have to listen to Black women, and Black women have made their demands clear. For example, in my research, I highlight the fact that Black women are in fact the least punitive group of Americans. They are opposed to zero tolerance policies, and yet they are among those who are most punished. When you have a president as well as a vice president who have a history of expanding the carceral state, it's clear, I think, what needs to be done to respond to Black women in that regard. Black women need policies that actually doesn't criminalize and dehumanize Black people and people of color more generally. It's clear that, especially in the area of criminal justice, that there is an opportunity for both Biden and Harris to transgress their previous practices and build up more liberatory institutions that map on to what Black women want for themselves and for their families. So if we want to save this nation, we need to support Black women, we need to listen to Black women, and we need to actually make sure that our policies respond to them.
And I hope you liked that. And I hope you could hear that. I thought she was wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. She is a full professor at one of the universities. And if you go on my YouTube channel, you will see I just discovered her today. So I just had to put her on there. So I was busy doing that. You know, in my life, and I can only talk personally about what my experience has been, Black women have been a godsend to me. Absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad. A godsend. My first mentor, you know, when I started a group long ago, not the group that I have, well, long story, but was a Black woman who took me under her wing. And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but everything she said, I absolutely, like, I knew, I agree, because this has been my experience. I have been just treated so well and so, like, wonderfully. And you know what? Women and Black men have absolutely no reason to trust me, because you know what? Sorry, we've earned it, white folks. And that's something, if you're a white person listening, that is something, if you truly want to learn about, you know, anti-racism, you have to drop your ego and understand it's not about us. Because if we make it about us, that's kind of defeating the purpose. And it is very hard to get a mindset where you realize it's not about us. I have some sisters. Oh, you're so sweet. Where have you been all my life? Thank you. But so we have to understand, thank you so much. If you're a white person, it's not about you. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You have to drop your ego. You will get your feelings hurt. And you got to suck it up and say, you know what? It's not about me. And what happens is the more you learn, the more you just cannot believe the whitewashed history that you've not been exposed to, that they didn't teach you in school, or they just skipped completely, or they made it seem nice. You need to learn our real racial history if you're a white person watching, and you will come to just respect all that. I mean, if you think about it, my grandparents were alive when we decided, white folks, not me personally, but the group that I associated to, decided that Black people wouldn't be considered humans. That's insane. My great grandparents, rather. And I mean, that's insane. It hasn't been that long. 1964, you can talk all we want, but that was a struggle. Do you know how many people in our national government fought tooth and nail, fought. I have videos on it on my YouTube channel to make sure it didn't pass the Civil Rights Act. I mean, look what happened to the Voting Rights Act. And gee whiz, do you think we need that? Hello? Absolutely. I mean, the reason, I don't know if everybody is aware of this, but the reason the GOP has been able to just circumvent every spirit of, people being able to vote is because the Voting Rights Act was gutted. It was gutted so that the states didn't have to, states that had histories of severe racism, which is pretty much all of them, but the ones more in the South, they used to have to, before they changed any rules, pass it by the national government, the federal government. And they don't have to, ever since that was gutted out by the Supreme Court. And so guess what? They've been changing things, closing things, and I have a bunch of videos on it, but no, wait. You have seen my cousin, Jesslyn. Really? Are you talking to me? Cool. So we have to understand, as white folks, we come from a history that most of us don't even know. And you might think, well, that's not my history, but you see, it is. Even if your ancestors, didn't come over here during the time when we considered human beings to be, not human, we benefit from all that is the past. And if you don't understand our white racial history and what happened as a white person, then you do not understand what's happening now. And I'm not trying to be rude, but if you don't understand the past, like redlining, sundown towns, horrific KKK lynchings and black codes, I could just go on and on, then you don't understand why things are happening now. And it goes right back to all opinions are not created equal. You might be getting your opinion from basically propaganda, total BS. Because, like I said earlier, before we had a little trouble, there was a time when racism doesn't have to exist. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. It doesn't have to. It's not. I have a lot of people come up to me and say, oh, angry soccer mom, it's just the way it is. It's the way it always will be. Well, you know what? I call bullshit on that. That is a great excuse to not have to do anything to stop it. And sure, you might have been born into this, like we all were. Nobody here was an enslaved human being, hopefully, and nobody here owned a slave because no one's alive that did. However, when you're born into something, it's like, and this is a really lame analogy, actually. It's probably one of my worst, but it's the only thing I can really come up with right now. If you're walking by somebody, your fellow human being, and they're drowning slowly, just slowly, You don't know why. And you walk right by because you didn't push them in? What the fuck? That's insane. Or because you didn't build the pool? So why the hell do white folks walk by, essentially, our fellow brothers and sisters? We see it, and you can't say you don't see it. I mean, you can, I suppose, but it's a lie. We see it, and the reason we see it, and I can prove it right now to you, is Jane Elliott, one of the people who I have followed since I was quite young, says it very clearly. She says, this is what she says. She says, all right, she's talking to an audience of white folks, and she says, raise your hand if you'd like to be treated the way we treat Black people in America today. And then she says, no, excuse me. Maybe you didn't hear me. Raise your hand, please, if you'd like to. And so, of course, no one's going to raise their hand. Well, we like to deny. But the truth is, nobody's going to raise their hand because whether it's subconscious or whatever, call it what you want, we see it and we know it. And we don't want to be treated. So why, if it's not good enough for us, is it good enough for them? No. Just because we're born into this doesn't mean we ignore what we see before our very eyes. We're all related. Look up the Human Genome Study. You will find we're all relatives. So this is our responsibility. And it is not the responsibility of people who have been oppressed and marginalized to teach white folks how to be human. That is on us. So if you're a white person watching, and yeah, I sound really harsh, and this isn't exactly 101. I have a 101 series for people who are not, have just not learned anything because of their sheltered condition or being raised racist or whatever it might be. And it's a very nice series, and it's not in your face, and it's not intense, and it's a great place to start. Because most people who are white, when they watch, I sound like really scary because systemic racism has been such a huge part of America that when we criticize and we criticize systemic racism, people think we're criticizing America and our country. And the two can be separated. It doesn't have to be this way. Systemic racism does not have to exist. It's a choice. And what happens is, as Michelle Alexander says in her book, The New Jim Crow, she says, and the wealthiest elites thank you for your service. And she says that to the people who are racist, white, racist people, because we all share a common plight. And the wealthiest elites do not want us to know this. They don't. They don't want us to know that actually they're sucking up all the money and we're all getting screwed. Because if we unite together in an understanding that we do share the same plight, because it's all about the economy, then we will not allow this oligarchy of a nation, which Trump has really pushed. It's not over yet. He wants it to be a dictatorship. Let's be real. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you are new, not sure 1, 2, 3 minutes different. Not sure what you're talking about. No offense. So, but yeah, and the term white, it's a color. It's made up. It's made up to separate. So that's just kind of, a 101 type thing. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the next topic, and it is Robert Reich. And Robert Reich talks about our democracy. Joey, welcome. Our democracy being destroyed. And President Trump's refusal to admit he lost the election is not something that comes without consequences. And those consequences remain to be seen. But it's not so pretty. The transition is a vulnerable time for our nation, and there have been major incidences during transition periods in our history. And, think about it this way. If you're going to lash out, it's just logical. Oh, Mahaka, welcome. Thanks for being here. I've had a little tech issues with this show, but I am extremely happy to have people who are here. Thank you for being here. It's been a nightmare, but I'm just talking about Robert Reich. And if you're going to lash out at another country, I don't think it's, you have to be a rocket scientist to think that to take advantage of their bad situation. What a better time than a time of chaos. And that's dangerous. According to many experts, let me just back up for a second. It's just really important to understand that, when Trump's voted out, that's lovely, but there is a overlap time where he's supposed to be transitioning people, and he's not doing it. It's not working out so great. Maybe he'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. But what happened is there's a lot of things that we thought were laws that were really traditions. And we found that with this person, Trump, he is, a con man and very, very, not truthful and whatnot. And that's his MO. That's what he does. And so he circumvents the spirit of our Constitution again and again and again. I don't know if you guys know this, but he actually hired lawyers to look into the Civil Rights Act to see if he can change one of the sections that puts intent. Like, you don't have to intend to discriminate or be racist to be racist and to be covered by that. He wanted to change it so that basically you had to prove intent. Well, give me a break. You can't prove intent. You can't read somebody's mind. They can say, I didn't mean it. I mean, he's very evil. He's the white supremacist. He is what I consider I'm not sure how else to put it other than the de facto modern leader of the Ku Klux Klan. And, he might say he's not, but look who follows him. Listen to his language. Vice News did an amazing, show, and it was years ago, on him. And they actually put two and two together and proved that his father was once arrested at a Klan rally in full garb, and that his parents were Klan. And look it up, Vice News. It's just look up Trump and Ku Klux Klan and you'll find it. And they did an amazing story using a picture of his parents' wedding invitation put up against the article from long ago from microfiche, when you, like the olden days when you look it up from a newspaper, because a newspaper had the article. And they did a damn good job. And, I don't think it's a huge stretch after what he did to the Central Park Five and how he abused people in his housing for a very, very long time. And then he got caught and then he kept doing it, paid the fines, So he's a very, very racist man. We didn't need to make him president to find that out. So it's not good. He's a very bad man. So anyway, the transition is kind of a vulnerable time. I guess that's an understatement. So if you're going to lash out at a country, I'd say do it now. And that's really scary. According to experts, another huge component of having a smooth transition is a stable democratic republic, is keeping people's faith in the process. And so what he's doing, he's not only making it dangerous for us, he's making people not believe in the process by lying over and over again and, about pretty much everything, saying the exact opposite about what's true. Trump's undermining the confidence of the constituency. And I think we were pretty bad off to begin with. Many experts say that the long-term damage Trump has been doing over time is devastating, absolutely devastating to the stability of our democracy. And let me just saying hello to some people. MD Black Africana Living Brit. Thank you. Yes, and I know Joe is. And here's the thing. It was kind of a, and I tell a lot of people, thank you for being here. And I tell a lot of people that here's the thing. Trump is an over the top racist. He is horrific. He ran a campaign on basically taking the human and civil rights away from pretty much every group he could possibly do. Biden was not my second choice, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 200th. However, from what I've studied, it really is a false equivalence to say that they're the same. There's racist, and you think, well, maybe you can learn. And there's evil. There's white supremacists. Like I said, the de facto modern leader of the Ku Klux Klan is the president of the United States. And nothing is going to stop him. You've seen, I mean, we had 4 years of living hell, of he kept every promise as far as I'm concerned, every last one. He ran a campaign saying that he was going to take the human and civil rights away from every damn group there was, and he's done it. So help me God, that man's a sicko. And all I can do is say that this election was about the possibility of keeping and somehow salvaging our democratic republic or oligarchy or whatever you want to call it. At this point, no one's going to announce with a little no one's going to announce that we're living in a dictatorship. It's not how it works. Trump spent so much of his time circumventing the Constitution, doing a power grab. He's a con man. He knows how to work the system, getting everything caught up in, the judiciary and suing everyone left, right. He knows what he's doing. He's a real bad guy. And just to let you know, 1, 2, 3, Mr. Fred. The thing is, in this show, we don't debate Trump supporters. That's not what the point of this show is for. I can't debate a Trump supporter. I mean, what am I going to say? You're an asshole? I mean, what am I going to say? It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about being a freaking human. And you need to kind of understand that. So I'm not going to be able to take comments like that. Because I won't debate a Trump supporter. I mean, all I do, what am I going to do? Put him down or whatever? If you're not American, let me explain something to you. A lot of this stuff is very, very hard to understand. I ran a group for years where I had 7 admins and 2 of them were for different countries. And it is, it had a couple, 5,000 or 6,000 people in the group. And whenever somebody from another country tried to chime in, they really had a rough time understanding American racism is, I don't want to say special, but we really have a very sick relationship with it. We can't seem to let it go. And Ramses, hello. So just maybe if you want to learn about systemic racism, maybe, sit back and learn and listen a little bit and listen to, what makes me really upset about things is I do this show, once a week, and I've done 109 of them. And people will listen to me, white folks will listen to me over people who actually live this every freaking day. And that pisses me off to no end. That would enrage me. That's how deep the disrespect and the racism goes. It's really sad. So what we got to do is start learning our own racial history. And if you're American, obviously, and if you're not, you can still learn it if you want. And it is eye-opening. It is life-changing. If you have a heart, it is life-changing. I mean, just learning about redlining alone, or sundown towns, or black codes, it's just the devil's punch bowl, Black Wall Street. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on. So anyway, it's don't feel, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't feel bad. If you're from a different country, it really, there's quite a learning curve to it. And I've seen it over the years. So don't feel bad. But it's extremely important for us to listen to the voices of people who live this. White folks, we do not know better how to solve the problems, social problems that we've created than the people living them. But nevertheless, it is our responsibility to step up to the plate and learn our own racial history. If you're a white person listening and you're like, what should I do? I'll tell you right now, learn to talk about racism. It sounds so simple, right? Learn to talk about racism and educate your fellow humans about it, white folks, and teach them. You don't have to be mean about it. Just teach them. There's about 30 classic cliche denials of racism. There's about 30 of them. I mean, I'm sure there are more, but there's 30 main ones. Nobody ever comes up with anything else. There's about 20 to 30. And what happened was you can learn all these 30 and how to debunk them. And if you learn how to debunk them, Jillian, welcome. I'm about to take a couple more comments. I just thank you for coming. I'm happy to have you. It's been a disaster show, but I'm happy people are here. Thank you. You can learn to debunk them. And then if you're a white person, you got to practice, because when somebody, spews this stuff, if you're like me, it's kind of like, whoa. And so if you haven't practiced debunking them, you might be like a deer in headlights, like, what do I do? So you don't want to be like that. So you need to practice them. You can practice online. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of racist people online you can practice with. Practice writing out what you would say to people. You don't have to be mean. Just explain to them. You can be a little teaching, I guess you could say. Mahako, if you scroll up at the very, actually, you know what? That is not true. I will put it at the very end. I will put it at the very, very end for you. I had it on the other feed, but anyway, yes, there's a way you can get a hold of me. I'm always looking for people to tell their stories. Norm, you are just on time. No worries. I'm happy to have you. I'm always looking for people to come onto the show. And for a while, I had lots of people on the show. And my whole idea was that I would be like in the corner and kind of just coordinating things. But what happened well into Trump's, regime, I call it, was a lot of my friends and people who, study this type of thing were afraid to come on. And I don't blame them one bit. I don't blame them one bit. That is pathetic. That it is just pathetic that a person living it has to be afraid to come on because our nation is so freaking racist that maybe they're afraid someone will do something to them. My God. I mean, just think about that. But let me take some comments. So it's not as hard as it seems. Once you start talking about it, you kind of get good at it, but you gotta want to do it. let me just back up. I'll get everybody's comments. Let me see. Carrie, my first choice. Nobody. That was a toughie. It was more like my first choice. Nobody was perfect. I'll tell you that much. Oh, like you need me to tell you that. I liked Bernie, but I didn't understand his stance with reparations. I just didn't get it. I was really taken aback by that. I had major issues with it. We'll talk. There's a lot. There's a lot of things. I had a couple of them that I thought were pretty, I thought there was a bunch of people who could do better. I'll tell you what happened with me, and I don't know if this will, help anybody to understand. MD Black Africana Living. You can never make America great without confronting its racist past and present. Much respect. Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. See, I don't know if you were here when I was saying this, but I do this show and I run my YouTube channel, not because I'm all knowing, yeah. Okay. That was amazing. We'll talk about Marianne. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. not because I'm this, sanctimonious person who knows all, but I'm sorry, I actually give a shit about my fellow humans, and I'm not going to stand here and do nothing and watch this. Racism, systemic racism, personal racism, this is crazy. This should have been obliterated. And I'm not sure what's wrong with us, but I'm not going to be a part of the problem by doing nothing. And if one white person sees me talking and says, that lady's talking about Black people, and then starts listening, even if they walk away, you have to chip away. This is a huge, huge learning curve for white folks. We are indoctrinated at birth into white supremacy. And we can talk about that all day, but I have a bunch of videos on it. So if you are new to the show, I have a channel that has a gazillion videos. A lot of my earlier ones are very intense. I have 101 videos for people who are new. It's okay to be new. Okay. But once you see this, you're born into the society, you take some responsibility, and it's not a burden. It's because we love our fellow humans. Give me a break. And I know they do the same for me. So it's not really a big deal. It's actually fascinating. It's really fascinating. So that's what I do. My 109th show. And let me just see. Let me see. I will back up. I'm skipping people left and right, and I apologize. Let me just see here. I want to go back to Marianne Williamson. Okay. What I love about her is, and obviously Black America has been trying to put reparations on the table for 10,000 years. I mean, forever. But what I liked about her, even though her numbers were off, and she's an interesting character. She's got, I mean, if you've read her books and know her background and history, she's interesting. But you know what? She's got some serious guts. She knew she wasn't going to win, but she came out there, and what she did was she helped the Black community by being a candidate that forced the topic of reparations on the table. It brought it to the table, and it made all the other candidates start talking about it. They had to. Now, when they had their little meeting, talking about reparations and restoration, all that stuff, I knew it was just basically them talking and nothing would ever come of it, because you see, here's the problem. And I don't mean to be rude, but white America isn't even close to getting reparations. Not even close. Okay. 3 out of 4 white folks in America who are adults don't have a single close friend who's not white. They do not understand. They do not know our real racial history. They do not, it doesn't hit their, it's not on their radar. It's just not there. And so when 2 years before Trump started his, trying to weasel his way into politics, there more than 75% of white folks in some areas of our country thought that we're in a post-racial era, okay? Because we had a Black president, because slavery ended in America. I mean, hello. It's unbelievable, the depths of racism and our lack of education. And it's been absolutely purposeful. This is not by accident. When I was younger, I used to think, oh, it's by accident. No, it's not. It's absolutely on purpose. The things that were legal, the way police originated in America as slave patrol, slave catchers. Okay. And I got to say, it's kind of still like that, and it really hasn't, the culture is out of control. We know what to do. We know exactly what to do to stop police brutality. We just don't want to. There are plenty of programs in the US. There are model programs, plenty of things I did 4 or 5 research videos on it. We just don't want to. And that is goddamn pathetic. Makes me sick. I'm going to shut up and take some comments. I keep saying that, but I'm not. Let me see. Let me see. Carrie, what you just said about how people respond to you as a white American versus those who are Black Americans cut straight to the core of what this is all about. Thank you. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I do tend to blab. Marianne Williamson, Marianne Williamson. I was really impressed with the fact that she just, as I said, her numbers were off, but you know what? She went out there and she forced it. And it makes me sick that white folks can do that. It's disgusting. But you know what? If you're a white folk, use your privilege to help support the voices of Black, brown, and Indigenous people. And that's all you can do. That's a good thing. And I loved it. It forced the talk. And like I said, first thing you got to do is learn to talk about racism. And yes, you're going to feel really stupid. Sorry, I'm just saying. You're going to feel stupid. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have people think you're racist. There is a huge learning curve, and you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel terrible. But I wish I knew how. I don't really know how, so I'm just going to kind of ignore him. But unless he says something appropriate. The teacher in me comes out. But yeah, this is something we can do. And it'll be grassroots, bottom up. But it's so worth it. Do you want to live in a world or have your children live in a world where some people are treated better than others? Some lives are just more worthy. I don't want to live in that world, and I don't want that world for my children. Just like I don't want my neighbor to die of some disease that's curable because they didn't have health insurance. That's sick. That's sick shit. I don't want to live in a world where Black folks are treated like a piece of shit. They're humans, and it's disturbing. It upsets me. So a lot of people's like, oh, thank you for doing what you do. I don't need any thanks. I do it for me. I can't take it. I do it for me because I can't stand injustice. I don't know if it's like a gene I have or whatever, but since I was a little kid, I just can't stand it. And I might not be the most talented. I might not be a great orator, but so help me God, I'm not going to sit and do nothing and watch and perpetuate it. Because see, here's the thing. With white supremacy, doing nothing and being nice to everybody is a lovely thought, but it will not dismantle systemic racism. This thing was here from the beginning, okay? And it is part of every system we have. So if you're a white person and you seriously care, you're going to have to step up to the plate and learn this stuff and find your voice. Because being nice to everybody is a lovely thought, but it will dismantle nothing. It might make you feel good. And that's part of the biggest fallacy about, well, just treat everyone like you'd like to be treated. Well, that's a really nice thing, but we're way beyond that point, okay? We have a set culture of white supremacy in every area of life. And I'm telling you right now, it needs to be dismantled and recreated for all people. Like, welcome to 2020. And being nice to everybody's not going to do it, white folks. And the problem with white folks thinking this is that it takes a huge group of our population who think they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're content with being nice to everybody. And I wish that were the answer. I don't have a lot of answers, but I know it takes more than that. So it's going to mean standing up and using your voice and using your privilege to support the voices of Black, brown, and Indigenous people. So I'm on a rampage here. Listen to me blab on and on. Thank you, Carrie, for such nice. Let me see here. Okay. Norm, that's what happened. The Tea Party, the Tea Party, the beginning of the end. Like I always say, and I'm not religious, and somebody asked me at the beginning if I'm agnostic as hell. But one thing I can say, if your religion teaches you to be hateful to your fellow brothers and sisters of humanity, I'm going to, no, just a shot in the dark. You're doing your religion wrong. Okay? As I said, it's just common sense to me. Your religion tells you to hate upon your fellow human, because we're all related. I hate to break the news. Then I'm going to say you probably, maybe, I don't know, you're not doing it right. It's just, that's my take, and I'm sticking to it. What other comments? For many, Obama was an excuse, not an achievement. Yeah. Obama, I actually felt really bad because they just, that man they would not let him put anything through. They wouldn't let the man make a move. If you notice, Trump has really outlined pretty much everything he tried to accomplish, because Trump is trying to take away everything. I mean, Trump's obviously like seethingly jealous because he knows he'll never be an upstanding person. He can't. He's not capable of it. So he's kind of shown us all the things that Obama did accomplish because he's trying to undo them all. But anyway, let me just okay. Oh, close the wealth gap. Yes. And we talk about privilege. A lot of people think, privilege? I'm poor. Well, there's many kinds of privilege. There's a lot of kinds, and economic privilege is huge. In fact, in the United States, being poor is pretty much a crime. If you can't pay, if you do something wrong and you don't have enough money, you're kept in prison, in jail. You lose your job, you lose your house, you lose your family. I mean, it's insane. We need to dismantle our supposed system of justice, and that's a whole nother story. But it's really, really bad. Let me just. But closing the wealth gap is huge. Some people believe that's the number one thing, and right now, I think systemic racism keeps people apart so that we don't recognize we all have the same, unless you're a bazillionaire or whatever, we all have the same plight. And I think the coronavirus and the lack of pretty much doing anything by our federal government has really shown a lot of white folks the truth. And I hate to say it, but it's been a good thing for some of us, because we're seeing it and we're starting to realize we have a common plight. So I'm hoping that's part of it. What I saw during, Black Lives Matter protests, I've never seen more white folks catch on. I never thought it would happen. So now, granted, a lot of people will go to a protest and then, go back to their ways, but I'll take whatever, I didn't think white folks would ever get it. Never. And for some reason, they're catching on, and hopefully that will spark them to want to continue to learn. For white folks, it is a lifelong venture. It's lifelong. We will never be there. Oh, I'm woke. You don't pronounce yourself woke. That's like ridiculous. Okay. It's not your place. And no offense, if you're white, you'll never get there. You will never know. I will never know. We as white people will never know really what it feels like to live as a non-white person in a society based on white supremacy. Okay. But it doesn't mean we don't try. It doesn't mean we just say, I'll never know. I mean, I don't know. There's something about like personal responsibility. I don't know about you, but I don't want my fellow humans to be treated like a piece of shit. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know if most people feel that way, but I really don't. It's upsetting to me. And I saw it when I was 6 years old. I didn't know what to call it, but I saw it all right. And all the adults were ignoring it, pretending it wasn't there. And one of my videos that I really expressed myself the most on, personally, it's called All I Said Was All White People Are Racist. It gets everyone's attention, whatever. And when I explain it, you'll understand, because I consider implicit bias the lowest form of racism, because it does lead to discrimination, which is the behavior of harming people. So I explain how I got my implicit bias, at least, a couple ways. There's a gazillion ways. And I think it's a really important video for white folks to see. Let me see here. Mr. F. Black. I would be more than happy to be a guest on your show. I'm a Black man in America, 40 years old, and yay, get a hold of me. Awesome. I would love it. Once I get my technology working, oh my God, it was a disaster. But yes, I would love that. In fact, I am going to, at the very end, I'm going to put how to get a hold of me, how to personal message me. I've been kicked off Facebook for life. Yes, you heard me correctly, for life. It's really pathetic. And I've done a number of videos on him, Mark Zuckerberg. And yeah, don't even get me going there. But I do still run some groups. I had a sneaky way to keep some of those groups. Don't tell. But I would love to have you. Absolutely. And let me see here. Gary. All religions are equally bad and equally good. I prefer none, but respect the decent followers of any of them, at least until they try to force their... Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, that is so me. I actually do have somebody who's trying to tell me that I should tell my people, who the hell are my people? And I know they mean the white people, but they're not my people. I don't have a set color of people. My people are people who have hearts of gold and would never do anything to harm their fellow humans. Those are my people. But this guy is always like saying, your people, tell your people that they should repent for their sins. Well, I'm like, no, dude, I'm not doing that. I don't tell people to repent for their sins. I'm not religious. And that's like a religious thing. He's like, well, you should tell them. And I'm like, no, thanks. Just trying to teach them some cultural competency. You can't force it on anybody. Let me see here. Okay. What is your racial background? My racial background is like a mix of a gazillion things, like European, this, that, the other. My family and my extended family, oh my gosh, Chinese, Indian, from India, African, from Africa, like India, from India, European, you name it. My extended family's all over the place, which is a really cool thing. And I think what I'm going to do is keep going. So let's talk for a few more minutes, if you can bear with me, about, let me see. Even though, let me just see something. Let me see. All right. So I wanted to get into what Robert Reich had to say. And he's a really brilliant guy. And I don't know if you know who Robert Reich is, and I'm going to tell you. He served as in the administrations of President Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton. He was Secretary of Labor from 1993 to 1997, and he was a member of Barack Obama's Economic Transition Advisory Board. He's a brilliant man who I've followed for quite some time. He's a professor at Berkeley, and I never got to have him when I was up that way. I would have done anything to have him. And we always had visiting professors from Berkeley at my school. And he is an excellent teacher. And it really does matter because this stuff's complicated and it's hard to be a specialist in everything. He's a really good teacher. So I love him. I almost got to see him, but then coronavirus came. I was going to, get an autograph and everything, but then the coronavirus came. So anyway, even though Joe Biden won the highest, this is from his writing, the highest percentage of the popular vote of any challenger since FDR in 1932, the Trump campaign's fighting in courts across the country in a desperate attempt to overturn the results. And we know why they're doing that is because, he knows that basically, as my friend Don, who comes on the show sometimes, says, the district attorneys in DC and Southern District of New York are ready to pounce the second the dude gets out of office, because he really is a criminal. He's done horrific things, and they're pretty crystal clear. They're going after him. So that's why the man's desperate. So far, they've been utterly unsuccessful. And why is this? Because there's no evidence. Robert Reich says there's absolutely no evidence to back up their claims of widespread voter fraud. In fact, there's the opposite. And we'll get into that later. So here's a quick brief debunking of some of the baseless claims that Trump and his lackeys are promoting in key swing states. And we'll start with Pennsylvania, one of my new favorite states. And I'll go fast. And I want to know what you think about this. A postal worker who alleged that he saw a postmaster instruct postal workers to backdate ballots mailed after the election date walked back his allegations when questioned by federal investigators. Gee whiz, I wonder why. In a recording of his interview, the postal worker can be heard admitting that he made assumptions based on snippets of conversations he overheard, and he declined to stand by his original statement. And in a court case filed in the state, the Trump campaign claimed that the Republican poll watchers were barred from watching. Now, in a lot of states, they had it on live camera. So when he said they were barred, like you could go online literally and look and see that there was a live cam on it. So it's like, give me a break. He's desperate. They weren't barred from watching votes in Philadelphia. It was a lie. One of Trump's attorneys admitted in court that the campaign did in fact have people watching and in the room. So, it's a little bit, got Michigan. Trump supporters circulated a list of 14,000 voters who were supposedly dead, but cast ballots for Joe Biden. CNN ran a sampling analysis of 50 random names and didn't find one dead person. So, the Trump campaign is very desperate, and they can make up and say whatever they want. It doesn't mean it's true. We got to have a little reality check here. They tried to bolster their claims by circulating videos showing voters who had, now this is really interesting, birthdays of January 1900 returning ballots. Well, that's kind of like, okay, they're 100, wow, that's really old. But Detroit's director of elections explained that the date of January 1st, 1900 is often used as a temporary placeholder for absentee ballots arriving just before the election day. Information that's been, it has to be inserted in. It's the whole electronic thing. So they're using it as a placeholder. So people who are ignorant as to what's going on are making these claims, and sadly they're incorrect. Sadly for them, but it's because they think their knowledge, once again, the Dunning-Kruger effect. They think their knowledge is equal to people who are actually professionals and kind of like do this for a living. And I cannot express enough that not all opinions are equal. And it's okay. It's a very specialized world we have. So don't even get me started. Jamie, I'll take my grandparents and my mom told me how much they suffer discrimination. Seeing signs say no Mexicans allowed, and our parent and grandparents remind us that we are Mexican, Mayan, Aztec. And that is an amazing thing. Thank you for sharing that. I think that I imagine a day when that is celebrated. And when I see somebody speaking Spanish, I'm like blown away, because I've been trying to, I'm conversationally fluent, but that's it. I've been trying for years to get actually fluent. So I don't think, oh, they're not speaking English. I think, damn, they can speak 2 languages. That's amazing, And I pray for a day that, that comes. I wish it would be in my lifetime. I'm not done giving up hope. So, in Georgia, Georgia, false rumors of ballots being found in a dumpster behind the Spalding County election office circulated widely, but an investigation from the sheriff's office found no ballots at all were in the dumpster, and the conclusion was affirmed by the Secretary of State's office. So, in Arizona, claim that the use of Sharpie markers on ballots would result in them being tossed, sparked a flimsy lawsuit, but the Maricopa County Board of Elections and the State Director of Elections and the State Attorney General all confirmed that the use of Sharpies did not result in disenfranchisement. So, I mean, these are all the lawsuits. In Nevada, the Trump campaign lawyers claimed that they had evidence of criminal voter fraud because some Nevadans had voted from out of state. In fact, the voters in question were military service members and their families, as well as they were students and congressional staffers who moved out of state within 30 days of the election, which is absolutely, there's rules for that. And they were all legal. And in the New York Times, the New York Times actually reached out, I don't know if everybody knows this, reached out to top officials in every single state in the U.S. and said they found no evidence of widespread voter fraud. And make no mistake, Trump and his guys, they don't really have a chance of changing the outcome of the election, but the GOP leaders pushing lies, nearly half the country's coming to believe that the election was stolen, and that is most dangerous. According to Robert Reich, Joe Biden will be our next president, but we need to aggressively knock down every baseless claim made by Trump and the GOP to defend not just Biden's victory, but the trust, if there's any left, which American democracy is based on. So it's really important. Let me see here. The next topic that I have planned is kind of a crazy one, endangering the Americans with this chaotic transition or lack thereof transition. Are we in danger? Well, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Trump consulted one of his top officials I guess it was last week, because he wants to bomb a nuclear site in Iran. And I'm like, oh my God. So what, now he's going to start a war so that he can somehow, he's desperate. The man is desperate. He knows that he is going to be in a lot of trouble. And, people are saying, like, if he, I guess, resigns, maybe Biden would pardon him. But here's the problem. There's nothing like that happening in states. He got federal stuff, but not states. And DC and New York and probably others are going after him. So he's a very desperate man. That's why he's trying to keep this base of people so that he can extort, sick his clan of followers, basically, on any person in power if they don't do what he says. And this is extremely dangerous. I don't recall in our history, definitely not in my lifetime, this kind of insanity. He's circumventing the Constitution. He's challenging all the things that we thought were laws, but turned out to be kind of traditions. And it's really scary. So there's a lot of holes to plug. That's why I say, even though Joe Biden, isn't exactly the number one choice of many, many of us, even if he was elected, and he was, and won, I still think there's a chance this Democratic Republic's over, really over. Gary, he needs to be removed now. Too much time left for him to destroy the nation. His COVID response and his inciting violence should be enough proof. Yeah, absolutely. I thought they could 25th them. But what's going on is simply we have the Senate is basically, he has something over on every one of them. He has this huge base of people, and it doesn't matter what he does. And they know it, and they are afraid. All he has to do is stick his folks on them for their next election, and they're out. And it's really disturbing. This is the work of a con man. It really is. Okay, Ramses, I will. Absolutely. Thank you. You didn't send it in this. You mean like you sent me a private message, maybe? But Carrie, but proof to whom? Psychophants. I'm not. Ask me that again, Carrie. I'm not 100% sure. I was kind of missing what you were saying. I apologize. But like, ask me in another way, and I'll absolutely answer. It's kind of hard. Sometimes I do call-ins and stuff, but tech's not working so well. Gary, at least Biden has experience in the White House. It should help since the current occupier is a petulant child. Yeah, he's being obnoxious, and I'm going to get into that right now. Some of the things he's doing. I want to know if you've heard of these things. When I was doing some, reading some articles on this, I was like, damn, he's really out of control. And the craziest thing is, even the nicest, most humanistic of some of the politicians, they can't, because he's not breaking the law exactly. He's not precisely breaking the law. He's circumventing the spirit of the law. That's for sure as hell. But anyway, endangering Americans with the chaotic transition. I'm going to read a little bit about that and tell me what you think. The following information outlines the further damage that's happening by not transitioning smoothly to the next administration. And this was from the Washington Post, one of many articles that I pulled from. 2 former secretaries of Homeland Security say it poses a national security risk and national health. Well, duh, we all know that, right? A secretary of Homeland Security under George Bush says a little bit more. He explains, and these are people who got together because of their concern over this lack of transition and this not saying I lost or admitting it. And you don't have to give a concession speech. I don't think there's any rule about that. But it's definitely really, really bad. He's not allowing the transition. That endangers us. So this is what they have to say. More than just getting the president-elect up to speed, the transition ensures a smooth continuity from one administration to the next. That means filling a lot of roles. He went on to say the senior leadership that are appointed by a new president amounts to 4,000 people. I will say that again, 4,000 people, including 1,000 of whom have to be confirmed by Congress. It's a massive undertaking. And this is from somebody who knows this. He's the former Homeland Security Secretary under George Bush. The Trump administration needs to turn over a transition budget. And apparently he's refused to do this. It's a very large budget. And what they need is the money so they can do a smooth transition. Holding up the money for a transition was actually, this is kind of scary. I don't want to scare anybody. Was highlighted in the official commission on September 11th, 2001, the papers that they wrote up afterwards about the attacks on the U.S., they found that the 36-day delay in the presidential transition due to the recount in Florida in the 2001 election had a ripple effect of 6 months delay in staffing the national security apparatus. They are not saying that for sure that they could have stopped 9/11, but oh my goodness, there's a possibility they could have stopped 9/11 if they had a 6-month delay in staffing for the national security people. The report concluded that the delay left the U.S. much more vulnerable. They said that future transitions should minimize. This is the report, the 9/11 report. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Should minimize as much as possible any disruption to national security policymaking. Well, lo and behold, according to the webinar that features the former Secretary of Homeland Security and other high-up experts in transition, national security isn't just our only concern. Obviously, with COVID-19, the cases are on the rise. A delay in the transition and giving over the money to transition could affect the nation's fight against the virus and rollout of the vaccine just at a time when we need it the most. To further complicate the transition that's kind of not really happening, I mean, we're lucky that Biden actually has been in the White House in a high position because he, knows the ropes a little bit. But this week, just to, add fuel to the fire, this week, Trump rage fired his Department of Homeland Security, just the exact people who the 9/11 report said should never be slowed in a transition of presidential power. The director of cybersecurity, Chris Krebs. And apparently, because he released information saying that the election was the most secure election in the history of the United States. I'd like to say that one more time. Trump's, I'm going to say Trump's, but the director of cybersecurity said that this 2020 election was the most secure election in the history of the United States. And he was the top person in the United States in charge of election security. He ran the show. Well, Trump fired Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense. Very frowned upon. Earlier in the summer, Esper refused to consider using troops against Black Lives Matter protesters. Military troops. He wouldn't do that. So Trump was already mad at him. This is some scary shit, people. It really is. Most recently, Esper opposed withdrawing our troops until the specified withdrawal terms were met. And guess what? Trump fired him. Fired him over Twitter. How incredibly inappropriate. So he was fired and a loyalist was put in his place. And supposedly we're withdrawing the troops. So we are, if everybody thought maybe there would be some peace for a couple weeks, maybe, while we all consider pouncing on Biden-Harris and demanding progressive laws that are humanistic be made. Oh, no. He's causing these, the 70 days transition. He's still keeping the money as of today, 5 hours ago. He won't release the money. And it needs to be released. He's putting our country in danger. And that's according to the 9/11 Commission. So, yeah. And you know what I'm going to do? Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate you being able to listen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a person who can be a monitor for me. I used to have somebody who did that, and then she had to go away. And when I do that, it will be life-changing. I am so apologetic for the people who are being all silly and stuff and just all that. But next time I will make sure it doesn't happen. How's that sound? It's only happened like 3 times before in 109 shows. This is a special one. But anyway, it's kind of obnoxious and I'm so sorry, but thank you for listening. And I really appreciate everyone being here. If you are a person who's actually here to be, how shall I say it, help educate and listen and whatnot, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I do look at every single comment. And Gary, happily blocking them so they disappear. Thank you. And I will definitely get somebody to help me do that. I apologize. I know it's very disruptive. It's been a rough time, but I have met some incredibly, really nice people that I never got to talk to before. And it makes me extremely pleased. And you never know what to expect when you come here. We've had this happen 3 times. We've had tech problems 3 times. And today we get a double whammy. So, all right, everybody be safe, be COVID safe, and please stay together. This is a crazy transition time. We have a president who very, very much is terrified and very corrupt. And he's trying anything he can do to not get in trouble when he leaves office, or not leave office, but hopefully it'll all work out. So don't be a stranger. Please try to, too much. And I'm going to say good night. And again, I'm sorry about all the goofy people. Very, very goofy. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for putting up with this. Normally our show's a little smoother than this. So if you halfway even liked it, try to stick with us, okay? Thanks. Good night, everybody. Well, that was a disaster.